I'm going to now turn it over to Aaron Fickner, President of the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges, who's going to talk about why now and make the case for pathway and skills collaboratives. Aaron?
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, President McDonough, for that great introduction that really framed why we're here and what we are trying to do. We are at a very, very important moment in our state's history, and this effort, we believe, will provide the forum for us all to come together to solve some of the big challenges that we face and the opportunities that are in front of us. So before I get started, I just wanted to recognize, first of all, again, thank all of you for joining us this morning for this important conversation. Many of you who are on this Zoom call today have had some role in helping to influence the design and the need for this effort. And so I appreciate all the work that all of you have done, starting with our Vision 2028 effort here at the Council, to the other planning and discussions that we have had over the last year or so and intensified during this pandemic. I am going to provide an overview of where we are in the state and why we believe that this initiative will help address the challenges and meet those opportunities. Before I get started, I just wanted to recognize a couple of people who are on the phone or on the Zoom. I've noticed that we have a significant number of our community college presidents on the phone. In addition to President McDonough, I see Presidents Reber, Ciotzi, McCormick, Gaba, Connolly, Rose, Borden, and Iacona, and I may have missed others. And I thank them for their leadership and their partnership in this important effort. And we have a number of members of our executive committee of the council who are on. I see Mary Zimmerman from Union County College. She is our vice chair of the council. Thank you, Mary, for joining us this morning as well. I also want to acknowledge the staff at the council that you will meet later that have really worked to make this day possible and this effort possible. You met Catherine Stargill, but I also want to introduce Travis Reed, who is our strategy lead at the council and the consortium for the Pathway and Skill Collaboratives, Sandra Bleckman, who's our senior project manager for employer outreach, and Zakir Mirza, who's our project manager for workforce development and policy. So you'll meet them later, but I wanted to acknowledge them and introduce them all to you. So why are we here? We believe, as Mike said in his opening remarks, that we have a moment where we really need to take bold action. We want to commit to work with all of you to build accessible, industry-valued education and training pathways that we believe are necessary if we are to expand economic opportunity, if we are to prepare our workforce with the skills that employers need in what we all know is a rapidly changing economy.
Difference as to what that word means. We will level this playing field for our families. The principle that we coalesced.
We did not know that Governor Murphy was joining us this morning. I think someone's listening to his speech about the agreement on the budget. So if you get any updates, let us know. So the mission of this initiative is quite simply to create a statewide network of education and workforce preparation that is industry-driven, partnership-based, and focused on equity and inclusion. And I will go through, I think, and unpack this mission statement because there are quite a few really important concepts here. We are talking about finally taking the step to build a strong network of high schools, community colleges and universities, workforce development organizations, including our workforce development boards, the state agencies and departments, community and faith-based organizations that are working to all come together in an industry-driven manner to really build pathways to economic opportunity. And it is critically important, and we're all reminded by the events of the last couple of months, how important it is for us to continue a relentless focus on equity and inclusion and doing all that we can to make sure that we are addressing the systemic racism and inequities in our society as we work to expand economic opportunity and to build a skilled workforce. So the state has set an ambitious goal, as many of you know, to increase the percentage of adults in New Jersey that hold some post-secondary credential or degree. The goal that New Jersey has set is 65% by the year 2025. Currently, 56.5% of our adults in New Jersey have some post-secondary credential or degree. That's a good number. We are in the top 10 of all states in the percentage of adults with some post-secondary degrees and credentials. And as you can see, we are higher than the national average of 51.3%. But we all know that the economy is changing rapidly and that employers are increasingly looking for workers who have the post-secondary education and credentials that say to them that they've got the skills necessary to drive their businesses forward. And so the flip side is that while we have 56% of our adults with post-secondary education, we've got 45% without that opportunity. And I think we all on this call would agree that increasingly individuals who do not have a post-secondary education of some kind will increasingly be challenged to obtain careers and jobs that will sustain their families and make sure that they are moving up the economic ladder. And so it is critically important, we believe, that we continue to expand the number of people in New Jersey who have a post-secondary credential. And while our percentages are quite high overall, like I said, we rank in the top 10 of all states, not that we have a lot of work to do. We have incredibly significant inequities in educational post-secondary attainment in our state. As you can see from the chart on the right, the attainment rates for Hispanic, Native American, and African American New Jerseyans are far lower than they are for the whole of our state. And we believe strongly that if we are to build an equitable and resilient economy, we need to do more to make sure that all New Jerseyans have opportunities to obtain post-secondary credentials and degrees and to have family supporting careers. We also have extreme inequities geographically. Obviously, some of our urban areas have lower attainment rates, and we have great diversity in counties. Some of our counties have quite low post-secondary attainment rates, and some of them have much, much higher. And so we are very focused on this effort in doing all that we can to make sure that all New Jerseyans, regardless of who they are or where they live, that they have access to post-secondary credentials and education that will help them obtain a family supporting career. So 2020 has been an unprecedented year in our state's history and our nation's history. And I don't need to say that to all of you because we're having this Zoom gathering. Normally we'd all be together, right? But here we are on Zoom adjusting to a very, very different reality. The public health crisis has clearly had an unbelievable effect on New Jerseyans. Way too many people have died and have been stricken by this COVID disease. And that is an issue. But also, as we all know, this crisis has forced mass layoffs, has restructured many jobs. We currently have 1 million New Jerseyans who are unemployed. That is unemployment levels that we have not seen in our state since the Depression. The level of unemployment in our state is higher than it was clearly in the Great Recession, and we all thought that was an incredible challenge for New Jersey. And while we all hope that as we get through this COVID crisis, that our economy will rebound, I think all of us would agree that the jobs that will be created and the jobs that will be sustained will fundamentally be different than the jobs that were here before the pandemic hit us. And I'm not sure any of us can really fully predict or understand those changes, but it's important for all of us to think about that the world that we left behind economically and from a labor market perspective is going to be very different than the world that we emerge out of when we come out of this pandemic. And we know that this pandemic and in historically that we've had a history of a mismatch between the skills of our workers and our residents and the skills that are demanded by employers. That is a longstanding challenge that we've always faced, and we think it's exacerbated by the challenges that are in front of us here in 2020. On top of that, we are at a very critical moment in our state's history. We have been reminded very much over the last couple of months about the incredible systemic racism and racial inequities that we face in our state. And we believe that we all have a responsibility to do more to address those issues, working together. The racial wealth gap and employment challenge really have reemerged as critical issues, and these need collaborative solutions. So we believe that this healthcare crisis, this economic crisis, this reckoning with a long-standing history in our country and our state of racial injustice and inequities really brings us to instability in our economy, but really brings us to a moment where we need to act and pull together and provide leadership to ensure that we address all these issues and we do it in a way that creates a more equitable and resilient New Jersey. So New Jersey's community colleges are leading this effort, and we are proud to be doing so and proud to have all of you in partners in this effort. We are 18 geographically diverse institutions. We are the only institutions, post-secondary institutions in the state that have statewide reach. We serve 300,000 individuals every year in credit and non-credit courses. So that is a significant percentage of our state's population is touched by community colleges. And 50% of all undergraduates in New Jersey in public institutions are enrolled in a community college. So the reach that we have, the statewide reach, the longstanding history and foundation that our community colleges have, and their local connections mean that we feel that we have a real responsibility to step up and to work with all of you to make a better New Jersey. We are committed to this effort, and we are investing $300,000 from our New Jersey Community College Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development to seed this critical work. We believe that this is so critically important that we believe that an investment from the community colleges is necessary to get this moving. We are well positioned for impact, but we cannot do this alone, clearly. It's important to note, I think, that we believe that the Pathway and Skill Collaboratives will complement and strengthen the wide variety of existing initiatives across New Jersey. We have many efforts that are currently going on, and it is our hope that the Pathway and Skills Collaboratives will become a framework that builds on those important efforts and connects the dots in ways that really strengthens all of those efforts. The state and the governor has laid out an ambitious Jobs NJ plan for workforce and economic development. The Office of Secretary of Higher Education has laid out an ambitious plan for higher education that really guides much of our work. The Community College Opportunity Grant Program, which expands access to community college education for people in households making less than $65,000 a year, is an important foundational investment that must be connected to this work. And the Department of Labor and Workforce Development has undertaken a number of significant initiatives that have a direct connection to this work. You'll hear later from Leslie Hirsch about the innovative work the department has done around labor market intelligence, and we will build and connect to that work. The department is committed to expand next generation sector partnerships to build regional collaborations. We believe that this statewide effort will be an incredibly important support for that next generation sector work that is going on in regions across our state. And the department has made an incredible commitment to expanding apprenticeships. We see apprenticeships as being an integral part of a Pathways model, and believe that this Pathways and Skills Collaborative work will only help to amplify the important work that the department has undertaken in the area of apprenticeships. So we really view this effort as being complementary to all of the incredible work that's already going on in our state. So let's talk about the goals very briefly for why we are here and what we hope to do. So we are committed to better aligning education to the rapidly changing skill needs of employers. We are committed to creating more usable information so that students and adults can make better decisions about the educational choices and the career pathway choices in front of them. We are committed to increasing opportunities for adults to get the education and training they need for career advancement. As I said, 45% of our adults in New Jersey do not have post-secondary education or credentials. And we know that in a rapidly changing economy, many adults will have to go back to get additional credentials and skills in order to remain relevant and to continue to have family supporting careers. We believe that it's critically important that we strengthen partnerships to help students transition from one educational level, one educational program to another, and to continue on their career pathways. That's making sure that high school students can transition to post-secondary education, that community college students can transition easily to four-year college opportunities, and that students in our non-credit programs or students in community and faith-based training programs can transition into other opportunities. And it is critically important, an important goal, that we make sure that we're promoting equity and inclusion throughout the workforce and education system, and do that through this work. So what are we going to do? What are the pathway and skill collaboratives actually going to do? And there are 4 important tasks for each collaborative. The first is to assess the need of our industries, to identify the industry valued credentials and degrees using employer feedback and labor market intelligence. It's important for us to understand the current state, to do a full inventory of all of the degree and certificate programs, the non-credit training programs, the capacity of our educational institutions, the partnerships that currently exist, to create a full inventory of the programs and the pathways that currently exist, so that we ensure that we're building on the incredible work that has already occurred. Thirdly, we are committed to mapping the key pathways in each industry built around the in-demand industry-valued credentials and degrees, and including a wide variety of components in those pathways, from career and technical education programs at our county vocational high schools, to dual enrollment programs, adult basic education, literacy, apprenticeships. We are committed to finding ways to award college credit for prior learning and work experience, building pathways from non-credit programs into credit programs, and building pathways to four-year colleges and universities. So the plan here is to map 3 to 4 key pathways in each industry, and I'll talk about what that means, and to use that information influenced by input from industry to really drive that effort. And then finally, we will work together to build pathways. We will identify in the future state effort where we are lacking programs and investments and credentials, and we will work together to find ways to build those pathways across our state. So a couple of key elements when we say pathways, just wanted to point out what we mean by that. And you can see the chart on your screen. We mean a pathway built around stackable credentials and degrees that give learners at all ages a clear sense of where they can go in their careers and in their jobs with further education. And that may very well start with a credential in a county vocational technical high school. It may start with a credential earned in a community-based organization, but we would like to see that also be able to lead to programs at community colleges and associate's degrees, and those lead to bachelor's degrees and graduate degrees. A key component of the pathway is there should be no dead ends. All the pathways that we build should give people the opportunity to continue to build on their education and to continue to move up the career ladder. We want to make sure that there are exit ramps and on-ramps for the pathways, that we're clearly explaining to students and learners and all of us the occupations that connect to the varying levels of education that somebody may receive. We also believe that it's critically important that we build pathways from our non-credit programs, particularly in our community colleges, but in our community-based organizations as well, into credit-bearing programs so that students and adults are moving up the educational ladder, that every educational opportunity builds on each other. I want to recognize our commitment to expanding prior learning assessments to make sure that individuals with experience can get credit for that prior learning and be able to accelerate their movement up a pathway. It's also important to note that we need to build pathways that are relevant for adults. There are many adults in New Jersey that do have post-secondary degrees or credentials, but given changes in the economy or changes in their interests or goals, need to come back to an educational institution to get on a new pathway. And so the concept of on-ramps and off-ramps is critically important. The concept of stackability is very, very important. And all of this, this pathway concept, we believe, can really undergird some very, very important collaborative work across all of the institutions and all of us who are on this call today. So just a couple of key components of the pathways. I touched on these a couple of times, but just to highlight a number that I think are worth highlighting. The high school to post-secondary pathways are very, very important. We have a set of very good innovative partnerships. You'll hear about some of them later with dual enrollment and pathways that help students get post-secondary pathways. It's also important, I think, that we acknowledge, like I said before, that state and federal financial aid programs, including the New Jersey Community College Opportunity Grant Program, can be critically important parts of this effort as we get students into credit-bearing programs that will allow them to take advantage of state and federal financial aid programs. And it's important also to note that we believe that the education and training in partnership with employers of their current workforce is also an important part of this component. While many of the pathway work will focus on individuals who are unemployed or underemployed or not yet in the labor market, we are committed to expanding our partnerships with employers to make sure that currently employed individuals have opportunities to get credentials and degrees to help them move up the career ladder and help their employers become more productive. So we are focusing in the first round of the Pathway and Skills Collaboratives on 4 key industries. We believe these 4 industries are really the foundation of our state's economy, and we believe that they offer important pathway opportunities for our residents. Health services is our largest industry in New Jersey, and we know how important that is now more than ever because of this pandemic. Global manufacturing and supply chain management, which combines a focus on manufacturing with a focus on transportation, logistics, and distribution, is obviously a critically important industry cluster to our state. Innovation and technology, which runs through companies that have a technology focus, but also many, many jobs, as all of us know, have a technology and innovation component to them. And so that is a broad and important component. And then the 4th industry we are focusing on is the energy industry. Obviously, our large and traditional utilities really power our state. And given the focus on renewable energy and wind energy, and with coming retirements in the utility industry, we know that there will be a great need to continue to build pathways in that very, very important industry. We are open over time to adding additional industries to this effort based on resources and interest and priorities, but we felt that these 4 industries are foundational to our state's economy and a very, very important start for this important work. So the structure of the collaboratives. The collaboratives will be really built around 3 different structures. The first is every collaborative will have an industry leadership team, which will consist of industry leaders, employers, industry associations, labor unions, and they will meet on a regular basis to discuss their common workforce needs, to provide us with up-to-date information on their workforce challenges and opportunities, and really ensure that this effort is being driven by the needs of industry. At the core of this effort is Pathway Partners. So we will be asking all of you after this meeting and through subsequent communications and other organizations that may not have been able to participate today, to become pathway partners in any of the pathway collaboratives that you would choose to join. This is obviously a voluntary and membership-oriented collaboration. And so we welcome all county vocational technical schools, community-based organizations, four-year colleges, and other partners, workforce development boards, to join any one or all of these pathway in-school
That's part of my concern. You know, normally you're going to nominate somebody as a president who is
If you could please mute yourself, thank you. And then finally, we will be establishing and are establishing a community college team consisting of community college leaders who will work to make sure that we are doing more than our fair share to move community colleges to support this effort. We have already had colleges commit to this effort. And for each of the 4 collaboratives, we have 14 to 16 of our colleges already committed to work collaboratively to make sure that this effort moves forward aggressively. So we'll talk more about roles and responsibilities and encourage all of you to be part of this effort. But we believe this structure will ensure that we are driven by the needs of industry, that we are collaborative in our work, and we are rooted in the important efforts of our community colleges.